Deku? I think he's some pro. By clouds. My head in the clouds not coming down. Chapter 40. Decisive matches. Icy Hot had managed to defeat that purple fucker, which honestly didn't surprise Katsuki that much. Yeah, Eyebags had beaten Deku, but Deku was a quirkless weakling, so that didn't count for much. What really surprised him, though, was that Icy Hot had used his fire in the fight, even if it was just to warm himself up. It pissed him off. The guy refuses to use his fire all year, didn't even use it at the USJ, and then, what? He has one conversation with Deku and he's cured? Did Icy Hot think Deku was better than him or something? Did he use his fire against Eyebags just because he'd been the one to defeat Deku? Whatever. It was better that Icy Hot was at full strength because when Katsuki beat him, no one would be able to deny that he was the best. If he beat the bastard while he was still only using his ice, all those heroes in the audience would think that if they fought all out, Icy Hot would win. So, really, he should be thanking Deku. Not that he was going to. But before he could beat Icy Hot, he had to beat Shitty Hair, who he definitely wasn't friends with, no matter what the mutt said. The problem was that Kirishima could easily withstand his explosions, which was annoying. If he wasn't the best, he would have wished he had some way to cancel Kirishima's quirk like Aizawa was. But he was the best, so he'd beat him anyway. At least Kirishima wouldn't be trying to crush him with falling rocks like Roundface had. He's a rock hard and surprisingly good at arm wrestling, Eijiro Kirishima! His opponent is known for his explosive personality and for not underestimating women. Katsuki Bakugo! Katsuki cracked his neck. This would be a fun challenge. Shitty Hair ran at him with a smile and launched a hardened fist at his head. What the hell? Where was the super nice, kind of annoying kid who wouldn't leave him alone? This guy was willing to do whatever it took to win. Good. They had something in common. An explosion right now wouldn't do any good, because Kirishima had hardened his whole body, so Katsuki settled for dodging. Kirishima responded with another punch. He seemed to be trying to end this fight quickly, which shouldn't be the case considering the whole point of this was to show off for the pros. Wait, how many times had he seen Kirishima harden his whole body? There were definitely a few times, like at the USJ, but he never kept completely hardened for long, and he normally preferred to just harden one part at a time. Katsuki dodged again and thought back to his last match. The only reason Roundface had lost was because she'd overused her quirk, so maybe the same tactic would work on Shitty Hair. Katsuki didn't need to blow up solid rock, he just needed to wait until Kirishima exhausted himself, then go for the kill. It was going to be a war of attrition. For the next few minutes, Katsuki was on the defensive, which probably looked bad to the pros, but as long as he won, they'd still know he was still the best. Occasionally, he'd hit Kirishima with an explosion to the ribs to test if he was getting softer. But so far, he wasn't. Maybe he'd have to reevaluate his strategy. He was starting to get tired. Kirishima launched another punch at his face, which Katsuki wasn't quite fast enough to dodge, and he was left with a long scratch on his cheek, and the next explosion told him that Kirishima was still as hard as ever. Damn, Shitty Hair was strong. Katsuki dodged for another few minutes before hitting Kirishima with another explosion. He winced and grunted, and Katsuki smiled. Time to die. You've been trying to keep rock hard this whole fight, right, Kirishima? That means you're overusing your quirk, and sooner or later, you'll fall apart! He ended his sentence with a massive explosion. Kirishima still had enough juice in him that it probably wouldn't take him down, but it would give Katsuki another opening. He didn't wait for the smoke to clear before letting off another big explosion to Kirishima's face. Then another. Then another. Shiria had his chance to shine at the beginning of the fight. Now it was Katsuki's turn. Now that Shirihae was tired, it only took 30 seconds of continuous explosions to knock him out. Yeah, he could see why Kirishima had been trying to avoid a drawn-out match with him. But too bad. Katsuki had been in control since the beginning of the fight. Shirihae just hadn't known it. "Kirishima has been knocked out," Midnight announced. "Bakugo advances to the next round." Izuku didn't know why he'd been worried about Katsuki. Of course he'd win. He was amazing. But still, Kirishima had put up a good fight, and he could see from Katsuki's face that Kirishima had clearly impressed him. As far as Izuku could tell, there were only a few things that Katsuki cared about, but strength and being the best was some of them. He even let Kirishima hang around him without beating him up, which meant he'd impressed him before at some point or another. Maybe even at the USJ. Well, they had their final four. Izuku was kinda sad that Shinso had lost to Todoroki, but he definitely put up a good fight. As fast as the fight had been, it had kept Izuku on the edge of his seat. The fact that someone could still activate their quirk under Shinso's brainwashing was something they could use if he got into the hero course. Yeah, the rules for the sports festival transfer were mostly unknown and highly subjective, but he knew there was no way Shinso hadn't impressed Aizawa, so he was holding out hope for a new classmate. And Todoroki had used his fire. Sure, that didn't erase the trauma that had led him to ignoring his left side in the first place, but it was progress. Izuku was so proud of him, but he wished he was more surprised that Endeavor was abusive. After Katsuki, though, he supposed abuse was a side effect of the system. All the more reason for a quirkless hero to come in and change things. Would Nezu help? President Mike announced the next match between Todoroki and Iida. It was so hard when his friends faced each other because he didn't know who to root for. Todoroki started off with an ice attack. Obviously. Izuku didn't know how he'd use his fire against a fast opponent like Iida, or how much control he had over that side of his quirk, but it was better to use ice to fence him in, like he was doing. It looked like Todoroki was gonna win. There was literally nowhere left for Iida to run. Just then, Iida jumped completely over the ice. Could he use his quirk to help him jump, or were his legs just naturally that powerful? Was there a way to use his quirks to enhance his jumps? That would be super useful in a fight on uneven terrain. He watched as the flames from Iida's engines turned blue. He was using that finishing move that he'd used in the cavalry battle. Risky, but against an opponent like Todoroki who could limit his mobility, he probably didn't have any other options. The kick was too fast for Todoroki to dodge, which meant that Iida was the first to seriously land a hit on him the entire festival. Iida grabbed Todoroki by the shirt and moved to throw him out of bounds when his engine stalled. Was that an effect of his reciprocal burst, or had Todoroki done something? Either way, it was the end of the match. As soon as Iida stopped running, Todoroki encased him completely in ice. "Iida is immobilized! Todoroki advances to the next round!" "Poor Iida," Uraraka said. Izuku nodded. He was really looking forward to telling his brother he won. "Oh, is his brother not watching?" "No, Iida said he was on a mission," Izuku said. "But I hope Ingenium will be proud of him for getting this far. His brother is super important to him."
"What are you doing up, shitty hair? Didn't I knock you out?"
Kirishima laughed.
"I just wanted to wish you luck on your next match, Bakugo." "I don't need luck," Katsuki huffed. "I'm the best."
Kirishima gave him a bright smile.
"Don't I know it? By the way, you were super manly during our fight. It was super smart of you to wait for me to get tired before attacking."
Kirishima sure had a weird way of giving compliments, didn't he? He acted like manly was the highest praise anyone could get. Even the girls. Katsuki didn't necessarily aspire to be manly above all else, but coming from Kirishima, it was pretty impressive. Not that he'd let shitty hair know that. Katsuki turned away.
Even an idiot could see that was the best strategy.
Kirishima laughed again, loud and happy. Katsuki bet that Kirishima never had to go to stupid therapy for anything, much less for anger management. All the more reason he should keep his distance from these extras. If Kirishima knew he went to therapy, there was no way he'd think Katsuki was manly.
Well, Kirishima shrugged. I'd better let you prep. You're up against Tokuyami next, right?
Katsuki nodded, and Kirishima went to leave.
Wait.
Kirishima turned back to him, and Katsuki scowled. Why'd he kept shitty hair from leaving? The conversation was over.
Good work in the last match, he said finally. It was pretty manly of you.
Kirishima grinned.
Thanks, man. Win your next match for me, okay?
He left, and Katsuki stared accusingly at the empty prep room. What had gotten into him? Why isn't Tokuyami attacking harder? Ashido whined. He didn't hold back like this when he was against us. It must be all the light, Uraraka muttered. Dark Shadow can't go on the offensive. Yeah, Izuku said. This match really couldn't be any worse for him. But there's always the chance that Katsuki hasn't figured out Tokuyami's weakness yet. Just as he said that, the field was engulfed in a bright explosion, and the air got so thick with smoke that no one could see Katsuki or Tokuyami. If he's smart, Tokuyami will use the smoke as a kind of darkness to recharge Dark Shadow, Izuku muttered. Oh, never mind. The smoke cleared, and Katsuki was pinning Tokuyami to the ground with one hand, and making continuous small explosions with the other. Dark Shadow had shrunk to a fraction of his size, and appeared to be crying. So it didn't surprise Izuku at all when Midnight announced Tokuyami's surrender.
Alright everyone, stay tuned for the finale!
Mike screamed.
Bakugo vs. Todoroki!
Chapter 41. Fire. Katsuki was on his way to his prep room when Endeavor found him.
Bakugo, correct? Your power is pretty impressive. Of all his classmates, I believe you're the one closest to my Shoto in terms of power.
Katsuki scoffed.
Obviously. If I wasn't the best, I wouldn't have made it to the final round. True. It is my Shoto's duty, however, to surpass even All Might. His fight with you will be a good test for how much training he has left. Don't disgrace yourself or him by holding back.
What was up with this guy? It was one thing to want to be the best. Katsuki understood that better than most, but to use your kid to try and prove that? That was a weak-ass move. If Endeavor wanted to be the best, then he had to do it himself, not force Todoroki to do it for him. And what made him think that Katsuki would even think about holding back? He didn't even hold back against Uraraka. Katsuki made eye contact with Endeavor.
You're a grade-A asshole, you know that?
The flames on Endeavor's face grew hotter, and his eyes widened in rage.
Excuse me? You want to be better than All Might? I can respect that, but Todoroki isn't you. If he beats All Might, that doesn't say shit about you. And you know what? I'm glad he's using his fucking fire now, because I'm gonna prove that I'm the strongest. You got that? Why, you insolent...
Katsuki didn't wait around for Endeavor to say anything else. If the mutt was here, he'd probably give Katsuki an earful about thinking before you talk back to the number 2 hero, but he couldn't bring himself to regret it. The bastard deserved it. He didn't bother checking the number of the prep room before barging in. He knew his way around, and if some extras were busy hanging around in his room, they were just asking to be kicked out. Unfortunately, it wasn't an extra in the room. It was Todoroki.
What are you doing here, Icy Hot? This is my room to...
Katsuki glanced at the door. Crap. Well, whatever, he was here, so he might as well take advantage of it. If Icy Hot wasn't going to declare war on him, then he was going to declare war on Icy Hot.
Alright, so I may have walked into the wrong room, but don't think I'm not going to be at the top of my game.
He let loose a small explosion on the table in front of Todoroki. That had always worked to intimidate Deku.
You better bring all you've got to this, Icy Hot.
Icy Hot didn't even react. Midoriya. Katsuki grit his teeth. He was the one declaring war on Icy Hot. Who did that fucking nerd think he was?
What does Deku have to do with this? I'm the one you need to fight. That nerd didn't even get beyond the first round.
Todoroki stared at his hands. He told me the same thing, that I shouldn't hold myself back, even though he didn't have to. You've known him longer. Has he always been so helpful? Yeah, the damn nerd has always been fucking helpful. Too helpful. Always looking down on Katsuki like he fucking needed his help. He didn't. He was stronger than some stupid, quirkless Deku. He deserved Todoroki's flames more than that bastard did.
This fight is between you and me now. Focus on the match, Icy Hot. That's the only thing I give a damn about. Whatever your family problems are, whatever you're feeling.
Katsuki spit.
Don't you dare hold back. Use your flames on me. I want everyone to know I beat you at your best.
With that, he stalked out of the room and slammed the door. He'd probably gone too far, honestly. It wasn't his fault Deku made him so angry. Whatever, Icy Hot could take it. And if it got him to use his flames during their fight, it was worth it. He was going to show the world what a champion really looked like.
Is everybody ready?
Mike screamed.
You already know our finalist, so it all comes down to this. Shoto Todoroki vs. Katsuki Bakugo. Begin!
Shoto wasn't about to underestimate Bakugo, so he started the fight with an ice wave. If he could completely bury him in ice, then... He couldn't see Bakugo anymore. Had he done it? Was the fight already over? No. The glacier started shaking as the muffled boom sounded from inside. Bakugo was still kicking. Suddenly, a portion of the ice cracked and shattered as Bakugo finished tunneling through. Shoto jumped back. So, he wasn't going to be able to bury Bakugo like he had the first two opponents, but that was fine. He had other moves in his arsenal.
You've got some powerful attacks, Icy Hot, but they're not going to be enough to beat me.
Bakugo ran at him and jumped. But right as Shoto went to freeze him, he used an explosion to change his trajectory and land on Shoto's left. Was he targeting his left side deliberately, like Midoriya had done in the cavalry battle?
Are you underestimating me?
Bakugo grabbed onto the collar of Shoto's uniform and used an explosion to try and launch him out of bounds, forcing Shoto to create an ice wall to prevent himself from crossing the line. Yes, Bakugo was powerful, but Shoto already knew that coming into the fight. Bakugo reached to attack his left again, this time with an explosion at the ready. He could hear his father screaming at him to use his left side, but he didn't. Instead, he grabbed Bakugo's forearm and used his own momentum to try and toss him out of bounds. Bakugo, of course, managed to switch his trajectory at the last minute to land inside the line.
Stop screwing around!
Bakugo growled.
What? Do you think I'm not worthy of your fire? I need to prove that I'm the best student at the sports festival, but that's only possible if you come at me with everything you've got. Show everyone you're trying to destroy me.
He should use his fire. If he didn't, there's no guarantee he'd win. Midoriya was right. It was his quirk, not his father's. Shoto had even managed to forget about his father when he'd used his fire in the fight with Shinso, which he hadn't even thought possible. But had that been the right thing to do? What did his left side even mean to him after all these years of rejecting it? Don't give up, Todoroki! Shoto flinched as Midoriya's voice echoed in the nearly silent stadium. Do your best! Do your best. That's right. Shoto was here to be the best hero he could possibly be, so why shouldn't he use his quirk? Steam rolled off him as frost evaporated, and his left side burst into flames. Bakugo grinned and launched himself forward, using explosions to rotate his body so he was spinning like a bullet.
Yes, Shoto!
He didn't know what it was about his father's voice that cut through even the sound of Bakugo's explosions, but as soon as he heard it, it was the only thing he could focus on.
Use the power I gave you!
In every memory I have of my mother, she's crying. He couldn't. Shoto couldn't. That power had made his mother's life a living hell. Had been what doomed him to his father's torture. Shoto let his arms fall as the flames died out. Wait, wasn't there something he was supposed to be doing right now?
Howitzer impact!
Oh, that's right. Bakugo.
Whoa!
Mike screamed.
Bakugo combined speed and rotation with a huge blast like the one he used against Uraraka, turning himself into a human missile. But Shoto didn't end up firing off that flame attack he'd been preparing, so what's become of our two competitors?
That arsehole! Katsuki had been so close to proving that he was the strongest, only for Todoroki to abandon his fire at the literal last second? Icy Hot had better be fucking okay so that Bakugo could beat him at full power. Katsuki waited for the smoke to clear, only to see ruined ice in every direction, and Todoroki sprawled out in one of the glaciers on the wrong side of the line. Todoroki is out of bounds, Midnight announced. Bakugo wins. No! Not like this! Katsuki dragged himself to his feet and rushed towards Todoroki, his energy returning with every step. No, he hadn't got to prove he was the best. He needed to show how strong he was. It couldn't end like this. He reached Todoroki and grabbed him by the front of his shirt, not caring that Todoroki was limp in his hold. The bastard must be faking unconsciousness because there was no way he was allowed to pass out without giving Katsuki the fight he deserved.
Stop messing around!
He screamed.
This isn't a real win for me unless you try harder. Now get the fuck up!
The air started smelling sweet, but it wasn't the familiar scent of his quirk that Katsuki was used to. He was starting to get lightheaded.
Don't!
Midnight took a step forward to make sure that Bakugo was really asleep, and then nodded up at the announcer's booth.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen,
Mike yelled.
The winner of this year's sports festival is Katsuki Bakugo!
Hey, it's Mika. If you enjoyed this podfic, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel or following me on Spotify for updates and new content weekly. Also, consider supporting me on Ko-Fi, link in the description. Anyways, I hope that you have a great day or night, and that your favorite author posts the exact fanfiction you visualized when you were meant to be doing work yesterday. Until next time.